Let's get ready to throw down!
Welcome to the show, everybody. This show is once again brought to you by Audible. It is a way to continually develop, no matter where you're at, in the gym, on the car, on the road. If you want to see some of the books that we recommend, sales, leadership, development stuff, go to salesthrowdown.com/books, and you'll see it all there. But today we are talking about an interesting topic because we're talking about trust and also skepticism, the other side of that coin. Because my old business partner, his favorite line in the world was that you can lie to a salesperson and still go to heaven. And that's true, because I lie to salespeople, right? I think we all have, probably pretty recently. And, you know, so if we're going to lie to them, we have to expect that we're going to get lied to.
Versus taking the truthful route. Hey, I'm not interested. Thanks for calling. Click.
So let's talk about how most people play the sales game now, right? Of trying to overcome the objections, which comes across as pressure.
Agreed.
Right? As opposed to if you just qualify on the front end, then you don't have to do the whole, you know, let me take this objection and try to like smash it out to half court, you know, and overcome it. So I'm not interested. Well, let me tell you why you should be interested. And then this whole game starts, right? Like that's how most people do it. So by that token, you got to lie.
Or not.
I was going to say, I don't. I can't say.
You never lied to a salesperson?
I cannot say that in the past I haven't, but I have learned to respect that person. They're just a salesperson, just like I'm a salesperson. So I go, man, you know, like I get a phone call. I'm like, man, I appreciate this is your job. I'm not going to go down this road with you. I'm not interested. And they're like, all right, thanks. And they hang up. Now I have had someone be a little more aggressive, a couple people, and I'll reiterate, super sorry, but I'm going to hang up on you now. And I hang up. But I really think it's important not to. My brother, he cracks me up, but he loves to play games with them. He'll like, yeah, man, let me get my father. He's like really, or my wife, he's really into this. And he'll put the phone down for 30 minutes. And the guy's just sitting there waiting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so mean. I'm not going to do that. I think you have to, you know.
I was going to say, I'd take the direct route. Now, have I lied to a salesman? Yes, about interest rates and getting a better deal and forcing that hand when maybe I didn't have that interest rate in hand. I've said, well, my bank will do this if you can beat that rate. I don't care who issues the loan.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't have that all locked down, and I was seeing where that could go. So I'll test that way. If that's a lie, then sure, I do lie. But I don't jerk them around. You know, if I've set a time, we try to make that meet, and I just reverse on them, you know?
Well, okay. So I think for me, when I'm talking about lying to a salesperson, it's the worst version of it. Let me tell you why I'm here today, right? We're here in your neighborhood. We're working on some of your neighbors' homes. Do you know Ben down the street? Well, he invited us in, and I just want to see when we could come in. And I'm like, hey, I'm not interested. Well, it's a free thing. I don't want it.
Free sucks.
Yeah, right? And so when you don't respect me enough to like take my no, then I have, you know, I'm not going to like slug it out with you right here. I have other stuff to do. So.
Or you're not good enough to give me a hook.
Well,
that interests me.
To me, it's just like everything else, though. It's just like in sales, when you're trying to gain a new client, verbiage is everything. So your response to a salesperson is everything as well. So you can close that door pretty easily if you give them the correct, respectful. Gosh, this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Or if you're honest with them. Completely understand 99 out of 100 people feel exactly the way you do. If you can get them to pause, but if there's no pause, skip it next, because you're in that game. That's the game you're playing at that level. Now, if you're a bit, you know, B2B, maybe a little, you know, you're finding a way in through the, you know, the gatekeeper, the white knight to the decision maker. But you know, some sales arenas are going to be just a numbers game. And it may bring out a little more aggressive individual to play that part.
For sure.
So, you know, different levels of sales, different levels of aggression, different levels of professionalism. Yeah. You know, used car salesmen all the way up to, you know, IT guys that probably have a real client because, you know, they've sent out feelers or whatever that marketing program is that already hooks a warm lead. Yeah, so I gotta see it for what it is.
Yeah, I agree with it. I don't like the idea that you know, I will sometimes like fabricate a reason like why it's going to be a no whenever I've just like made the decision. But I just don't really want to deal with someone who's going to try to put like a full court press on me to get me to a yes whenever it's like, look, I've already said no, so let me dig in here and come up with something so that way it's like you take it as a real no kind of thing.
Sure. Is Clint going to say anything?
I was going to
today?
say,
Yeah, he's being super.
I think the D's like,
I was listening. Yeah.
I think the D just wants to shoot the finger at him, and he should.
No,
laugh at
I
him.
mean, I literally have these phone calls probably daily.
Oh yeah, because you get sold more than I think
Yeah.
anybody else here at the table.
I mean, it's daily for sure. Yesterday, you know, a guy called and he says, "Hey, do you have 26 seconds?" I said, "I have 25. Go." And so he kind of laughed, and I said, "Look, so what? Just give me the skinny real quick because I'm about to head into a meeting, which is a lie, right?
Yeah.
But it's a precursor to hurry the fuck up because I don't want to hear this pitch." And so he starts, and I just say, "Okay, look, you're trying to sell me this program. I use this and this and this, and let me tell you why. I use this because we already had it. It's already paid for.
Mhm.
I don't want to transfer all this information. I'm sure you have a great product. It's not for me." And he's like, "Oh, thanks for the information." Click.
Yeah.
It took all of about 2 minutes versus,
If it
Playing
all
the
went like
game.
that, I'm good.
but
Right.
I think it's how you set it up, right? So it's
That's
that truthful upfront. Just look, man, I'm not in
Agreed.
it right now. So,
Well, so something I'll do sometimes if it's something that I'm interested in, right? And we hop on a call because I'm vetting a partner or like a new CRM or something like this. I'll set my frame just like I would if I was the salesperson talking to the prospect.
Sure.
It's like, hey, look, I got 30 minutes for this.
that's how it should be. I think you should treat those people the way you would want to be treated if you had to make the same phone call, because you do make those phone calls.
Yeah.
As long as they stay within the
Yeah.
boundaries that I would
Yeah.
stay within.
When you
Because if they-
deviate from what we agreed to,
Yeah.
even as a buyer, when you deviate from that, you're dead to me. Like, it's just over.
Mhm.
Like, you had the rules. I put them in front of you pretty plainly, and you broke them. So I'm out.
Yeah.
Because what else are you going to break down the road? If this is the first interaction with us doing business together, what else are you willing to do to try to get around what I'm telling you?
Mhm.
So you're just not a salesperson
yeah.
to me.
Yeah. So I'm betting this company that I'm potentially going to partner with, and I sent an email, and he fired back, and he's like, "When can we chat?" And I said, "We're not there yet. I'm looking for this information, this information, this information," and then I'm waiting for him to like, you know, go for the no or call it over or something along those lines. And he just answered all my questions, and I was kind of like, "Oh man, I appreciate you answering this. This is like super helpful. I need to do some thinking on it and kind of check some stuff, and then I can let you know." And he was like, "Okay." And it was so nice, right? And I think we have talked about this on this show about, do you force people into your process, or are you okay kind of,
following theirs.
yeah, right? I mean,
it's a tug of war.
There's a rapport thing there, because if that guy was like, "No, man, we got to get on the call and all this stuff," me, because I've got all the skepticism in the world about, this kind of thing, you would have blown me out of the water, right? So, because that is the other side of the coin, right? Because like as salespeople, and we know that people are, "Oh, everything's good," because it's probably not, but you just don't want to have the conversation right now, right? I mean, it's not typically a no for forever. It's just a no for today kind of thing. So how do you balance the skepticism when you're the salesperson?
Clint?
I don't. Yeah.
Here's my balance is I think people are genuinely good. I mean, there's some evil folks out there,
Mhm.
but I believe in the person. I'm skeptical of the process or the facts or the figures until I see them play out, that we're going to be able to do this deal because of what you brought to the table. Now, I think genuinely you may think that, and you're not trying to, go around me or shyster me or take me down a path I don't want to go. But when somebody says, "Oh, this is a perfect fit," well, they don't really know that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the one that's going to decide that. So you can't tell me. Now, I genuinely believe you think it is,
Mhm.
but that's not the key factor here. The factor is, does it match up to what I need, my wants and needs, and does it solve a problem for me?
So that kind of sounds like you want to deal with salespeople who are like me, right? Facts, logic, figures. They're not the big talker. They're not trying to do the big come on and too much rapport and things like that.
It varies from individual to individual, because some people just come in with packets that they didn't build the data.
Yeah.
They're just on the sales side, and they're not on the service side, and there's some missing components there that can cause this deal to fall apart. But do I trust what they're telling me, or that they think it's the truth? Well, okay. and there's been times I'm like, dude, somebody lied to you because this isn't the way, and they kind of go, I'm getting the sense that, yeah, and I'm, so we take it from there. So if you can keep it as an adult to an adult conversation with a lot of truth coming from both sides, we all have misconceptions. Oh, I thought it was this, but it's not. And the one thing in my business, particularly when it comes to spinal hardware, if I'm like putting nuts, bolts, and screws into somebody's back and I'm the guy that, is the face to this product, the manufacturer, you know what I ask them? When this F's up, how will I know? What am I going to hear? What's going on? Because it's all easy peasy till something snaps, right? And now you've stripped something out, and how do you get it out of that person's back? So I always want to know what's where's this thing going to break down on me, and how do I prevent that? Because everything else is going to do what it said it was going to do.
So ultimately, to me, it sounds like it's a trust issue. I think when you have someone come into your door that you've never seen before, in my business, the reason I'm successful is because I have connectiveness with other people. And again, I know I just throw up relationship, but I do think that is just so vital. So when you have someone, or I go to someone that I don't know, it's their very, a cold call. Go ahead.
Well, let me stop you. When you said you trust, you build trust because you follow through on the things that you do. I've seen that time and time again.
It takes time.
And patients come back in and talk to that doctor and give you a good accolade. You build the relationship, but you also walk the walk for the talk that you're putting out there.
Well, and the same thing with working with Dr. Daniel over all these years. I've seen it, and I've said this before, that people trust him because they know that he does care about he investigates. He tries to figure out what if this scenario happens. And so when someone is cold calling you and you don't know them, you're gonna back off. When you're calling on that person for the first time, you're going to have to do some relationship building, even in that very first call. You can't just call and say, you need this, or what you said, that guy came to the door. Yeah. He should have bonded a little bit. He should have, said, hey, how you doing? There is some
I disagree.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so talk to me.
Sometimes your time frame doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the one guy I bonded with, okay, was from a financial door to, it's a
Ed Jones kind of thing.
That, and it was the middle of August, and he was in a suit and tie, and he's sweating buckets, and I'm like, this dude's committed. I'll listen to what this guy has to say, because this cold air coming from my front door is probably the only relief this guy has from an August. And I ended up doing business with the guy. Put my kids. Yeah, I was like, man,
because why? You had, maybe it wasn't trust, but he had weight in that
he's out there slaving it in the middle of the day on an August
So to me,
Saturday.
It's kind of the same thing where you're giving, but Clint, you want to argue to that as well? Go ahead.
No, I mean, I look at those guys, and when you said that situation earlier, a lot of people like to either just slam the door in somebody's face, which is just completely rude, which is terrible, right?
It is terrible.
I hate rudeness when it comes to stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Give the guy 5 minutes. Now, there is a boundary, because this is my home. You are on my property, that maybe I don't want you there. I do have kids and, protection stuff. So you have a boundary. Stuff. You shouldn't cross this line sort of thing. So there's, I've had those people come up and, they knock on the door and, hey, do you have 20 minutes to talk about home security? I'm like, no. I mean, I probably do.
It's in my waistband.
But I'm literally watching the Alabama game, and
this ain't happening.
Sorry, bro. But, what I usually say to them is, hey, I appreciate the fact that you're out here, like Doc said, beating down the bush, and it's got a Saturday morning, tough fucking job, Yeah. So I look at that, and I have a little bit of compassion for it and say, hey, sit down on the porch swing, and you're more than welcome to practice yours. I'm not buying, but you're more than welcome to run your pitch by me if you want to get a repetition in.
Very nice.
Like that.
The teacher.
And sometimes, well, and it's not even that. It's the quickest way to get him off my porch, because if he knows I'm not going to buy, but he's going to run through his pitch really quick. What do you think? That was pretty good. I'd change this and this. If it was me, it works better on me. All right, have a nice day. See you later. Here's a card in case you ever think about it. Right. Took 2 minutes.
I like that.
So.
I think that most of the times that I feel like, okay, I just want out of the situation, it's when it's these cold knockers, and they come up and they want to give you the insulated windows or the roof inspections and stuff like this. And it's like, the thing that comes down to is like you've interrupted my day. I've got something else going on. This is not the top priority for me, and they're trying to sell the whole thing.
You
right?
are a C.
And-
That makes some difference too.
Well, maybe, but I think right, because we all know that if you're going to be cold calling or cold knocking or doing any of these things, like you're just trying to sell the appointment, right, to like come back later, and you're trying to sell me on this idea that I should let you up on my roof and
through my house on the roof. Come on, man.
Come on. You know, that's a fairly big ask after knowing
Sure.
you for like all of 3 seconds. Why would I let you do that?
It's like the home security guy that pulls up in a Chrysler in your driveway and gets out in sweatpants and he's like, "Hey, do you trust me to wire up your house with security?" No, I don't. Joan, you know, your name's Mike and it's Mike's Security. No thanks, bro.
So back to my point, it is a trust issue that you have to, and it does matter how you respect someone and you give them a moment. It does matter.
Sure. And I also think if you're out there, if you are that guy, right, beating down the doors, because like that's a way to sell. I think you need to be honest with yourself and be looking for some pain and get the truth out of people, right? When they tell you the truth, you know, trust that what they're telling you is, you know, this guy obviously doesn't want to talk to me. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, leave a card, whatever you do, because he might stick it on the fridge. And hey, if you're selling, you know, roof repairs and the storm comes through, just because you dropped the card off and you're on his fridge might be the guy he calls when he needs you, right?
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
And that's
So-
important fact that you just brought up too, that don't burn a bridge. So if you're, you know, of course, if someone's coming, you're not burning a bridge with that person necessarily. But if you're in sales and you act like, you know, someone doesn't do what you want them to do, don't burn bridges.
I honestly think the best door knocker people that I've ever done business with is like the AC repair guy that literally walks up, "Hey, just want to let you know I work in your area. I'm right here down the road. Here's my card. If you ever need anything, give me a shout. Thanks for your
Absolutely.
time." Boom,
Yeah.
gone. And I've used those people.
Yeah.
I've met you. I know your name. I know what you do. Now 6 months later, I need AC work.
You know, but the bad side of that coin, right, is that if you're that guy's
Exactly.
boss, right,
You're
well,
not getting any feedback.
yeah, you're not
Yeah.
getting any feedback, you know, and you're caught in the paradigm of hope. You know, you're hoping that these people are going to call
Well-
you and stuff like this. So it's not the best.
But what you're out there shooting for is contacts, one. But the other side of it is if you knock on enough doors, if that's your business and that's your business model, you're going to hit one that somebody that day's air
Sure.
condition just went out.
Yeah.
Right. That's your sell today. That's the number that you take back.
And I've lived on the sales side of that, and I've also been on the consumer side of that.
Mhm.
I think there's a game plan that you can put together for whatever sale you're trying to make.
Yeah.
That does two things: builds trust and minimizes skepticism. And however you do that, depending on like the skeptic, like Mike's, you know,
Yeah.
AC
Mhm.
repair, right? Instead of one of the bigger names.
Sure.
But if Mike is ever present in a geographic region that's not too large and he can get some exposure, then he gets some credibility. And people
Right.
like to see credibility,
Yeah.
whether it's that they heard it in your voice
Or referrals.
and you can
in
build
that
credibility in a New York minute. You
Mhm.
come sit in front of me with a problem and I say, not sure, but I really think this is what it is. And it might have been overlooked. Let's go do this test. Depending on the severity of the issue, man, patient's going to go, oh, I really, you know, I don't make any promises. But again, it builds that credibility of maybe this was what was missed, or I know exactly what you're having. I completely understand. Have you thought about this? Wow,
See,
no.
That sometimes drives me nuts, right? You know, because like there's too much of like the forced rapport. Oh yeah, man, I know, right? I know exactly where you are. I've dealt with this as well. In the back of my head, I'm like, no, you don't. Come on, you haven't, you know. But this happens a lot, right? Because they're like, you know, build rapport, and there's like a bad way of building rapport when you're coming across as
Absolutely.
fake. And
But we use diagnosis codes in medicine, man. It is as factual as we can try to make it
Sure.
within a certain dynamic
Absolutely.
of you're a male, she's a female, but you both have bicep muscles,
Mhm.
right? And so you can really, if you're saying I'm skeptical of the physician, I disagree, because we're running just a straight algorithm, nothing more, nothing less.
There is a wordplay there that you got to be careful of. Is I know exactly. You got to
Yeah.
get rid of that word.
That's
exactly.
what I said. I didn't say
I
exactly.
hate that.
So, and to your point, yeah. So I run into this in my business a lot. It's like somebody comes to me with this huge. It's the biggest problem they've ever had, and you got to remember that's they, not you, right?
It's important to them.
So you got to take yourself out of the equation.
Urgent and important to them.
And showing empathy is something that doesn't really resonate with a C, right? And sometimes not with a D.
Oh, no. I want you to have your facts.
But I can't get them till we have a conversation. Sure. And I'm saying, yeah, I understand exactly. So it's clarity I'm providing. Yes, I understood. With somebody like you, absolutely. I see you coming. So when I sit there, I start asking you questions and put it back on you to tell me more information.
Yeah.
And remember, pain doesn't count because you got a headache and I have a headache. Who has the worst headache? I do. It's in my head.
Yeah,
I'm feeling
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, because you were talking a moment ago about diagnosing the problem, right? Because if you walk into a doctor's office and you're like, hey, I have elbow pain, and he just like, slides you a script and says, okay, cool, like go take care of it, you're not going back to that doctor, right?
Unless it's a really good script.
Here's some narcotics. Keep it coming. You're like, I'll be back next week. Thank you.
My knee actually hurts as well.
Oh yeah,
right. Because in those moments when you have pain, like you want someone to like listen to you, right? And to diagnose the problem, right? And I've seen you do this, right? You worked on my back and everything else, and it's how long has this been going on? Like what have you done to try to fix it? There's a level of questioning that allows me to feel that you have got really good perception of like what's going on, as opposed to let me just fix it. Hey, you know what? Shut up. I know exactly what you need. I got it right here in my pocket. How about I just give this to you?
Yeah, and I blow that guy off.
Yeah, I do as well.
For me, it's the way you build trust. Since we're talking about trust, for me, it's sitting in front of the customer and I hear, hey, this is our biggest problem. My entire AC system doesn't work. And I look at it, and like I said, it's their biggest problem here and now, and it is painful for them, right? The only way I can help build trust, or the way I do it, is to say, look, man, this is a pretty bad situation for you. You got a, let's say a hotel full of people without AC today. This sucks. But if it makes you feel any better, a lot of people have had this problem, and we've helped a lot of people through this problem. It's similar to one we did last week, right? Things like that. So it just kind of helps, like, okay, good. Somebody else has had this problem. It's been dealt with. It's been fixed. They're still alive. They're still in business, right? You kind of, that's the trust for me.
It kind of shows them, like, because when you're in the middle of that, right, and you have pain and it's like, current, you think you're the only guy or the only person who's ever had this, right? And so whenever you can show up and, tell these stories about the other people that you've helped and their concerns and everything else, it builds some rapport without you actually having to brag, right? Because when you brag about like how great you fixed the other guy's problem, right? It becomes,
ooh, you're going out on a limb there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But because at the same time, you might get some ugly feelings if that guy has been competing against that other business for a long time. So you got to be careful about. When I'm building that trust with those people, it's really important to know that you're going to take care of them. You're on their team. You're here to solve a problem. And, it'd be like walking into a lawyer and you're the first DUI he's ever seen, right? It's your biggest problem. Yeah. You walk in, you're like, I have a DUI.
And he's like, yes, you drink. This is going to be a repeat. I'm going to get some repeat business out of this.
But it's like, if he sat in front of you and was like, oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. What do we do? Like, I'm not going to that lawyer, right?
Wrong referral.
Yeah, exactly. But if he sits in front of me, he says, hey, look, I deal with these cases weekly. This is the process.
Well, you provide direction.
No, but wait a second. You bring up a point. I've had more people just not understand that attorneys, there's a bigger story there, right? What judge are we going to be in front of? How well have I been drinking with that guy? I mean, there's a local posse that, can run pretty heavy and help you out in the legal sense. So it depends. And I guess I go at it with, sometimes my attorney looks at me and goes, I don't have a clue. But it doesn't mean he's not going to work on the problem. He just doesn't want to give an answer till he knows we've got this nailed down, because he doesn't know how far off the beaten path I've gotten, right?
I'll check into that. Let me get back to you.
Yeah. So if you run into skepticism on certain fronts, sometimes it's skeptical back. And I think as a salesperson, you should be more skeptical of your prospect that they're actually going to pan out than they should be of you. And somehow you have to convey that. And that's almost like grabbing that no with their skepticism.
Mhm.
Absolutely understand this probably isn't going to work. I'm not even sure you're a guy I need to be talking to.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put it back on them in a certain
Sure.
sense.
I mean, we were in a project interview just a couple days ago. Me and our construction team and sales team, and quite a big crew of us in a room with the customer, and the guy was he said, "Well, you guys are one of 3 that we're interviewing, and appreciate you guys coming by. We've got 3 different answers on how to solve this problem." I'm like, "Well, that's interesting. Which one do you like the best?" And the guy was like, "Well, 2 of you had some pretty good ideas. We'd like to talk more about those." I said, "Okay." So we go through how we were going to do it again. And I said, "Is that along the lines what you guys were thinking on how to do this job?" And he says, "I think that is the best solution." So in a few minutes, you kind of start singling yourself out,
Mhm.
building the team that when we do this is how we're going to do it. Do you guys agree? Oh yeah, that's exactly how we would do it. So you just you build in that team, that trust, that togetherness.
Okay, but where's the fine line between that and just free consulting?
Well, I think there's a certain stage, you're not doing that in day 1. You're not doing that on bid day.
Yeah.
This is second round interviews. We're talking $6-7 million jobs. You go through this process, right? So, and what's funny is my boss actually asked me that just the other day. He's like, "Well, how much information are we giving them? What's stopping them from taking that and using a cheaper customer?" And I said, "Hey, they can absolutely do that. But if they're like that, I don't want to do business with them anyway. So if they're willing to do that in the interview process, what are they going to do when they start time to pay checks and pay us? Are they going to?"
And Nan and I run into that in our arena because we have some direct interface with doctors' offices. And some of these guys, they're great physicians, but they're poor businessmen. And they think, I'm a doctor,
Yeah.
I can do everything, right? And we've had to face some of that where we don't give them all the nuggets. We have to hold back.
Sure.
Or we're free consultants at that
Yeah.
point. And at that point, then I get skeptical of them and begin to put it back on them.
Sure.
And Nan's gotten good at that as well.
I mean, literally, there's a there's a hill that you cross or a speed bump that you go over, and after that it's time to do this work or not, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, if you've taken all this from me, and you're going to go use a competitor that didn't, so for an example in my business would be, you're going to use somebody cheaper that didn't have all these answers. So you called me to the table to get all my answers to give to him to do the job.
Yeah.
You're going to fail, and you should know you're going to fail. Something's going to go awry during that project.
Mhm.
And I'm going to laugh because I didn't do it. I'm going to be happy because I wasn't a part of that. And I'm going to go do business with somebody else. So, I'm not too worried about it.
So backing up a little bit to the idea of, knowing your stuff and passing whenever you don't. I was working with this client, and I got in there on a referral, right? And so there's a decision maker, and then the guy under him, and the guy under him is where the referral came from. And he was asking me this question about stuff that I have opinions on, but don't really work on as part of like what I'm doing for them. And I said, hey, you should probably go talk to this person or this person about it. People who they were already working with. And the guy, my referral, he was like, "You don't have any input on this?" And I said, "Well, I have opinions, but if you're working with these other people, they've probably gone through this. It's better for them." And the boss turns to the other guy and he goes, "I like the fact that he doesn't try to, talk about stuff that isn't part of his wheelhouse."
Sure.
And I was like, fist pumping. It was nice, right? Because I know, I the guy who gets a ton of self value out of having the answer, right? And left to my own devices, I would go spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure out the right answer for them. But it's not really part of what I do. It was just kind of a one-off question, and not, it was just far enough outside that I was like, I shouldn't be dabbling in this kind of thing. So, which goes to the thing that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the one-stop person for things.
Yeah, be genuine. I mean, don't.
But if you're in any enterprise, you need to know the people who are also in that enterprise or that line of sales. Let's just boil it down. If you're in car sales, you should probably know other car salesmen. You should build social networks. If you're door to door, not sure how you would do it, but probably a good idea to know who else is knocking on doors in the area. If if you're in the medical device business in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, Nan and I probably know just about everybody in that business after a decade. So if you're selling with integrity, you're going to find other people who sell with integrity as well.
Sure.
And you may drink with them. You may, be at a social function and rub shoulders. It behooves you to honestly know when somebody else is a better fit for a particular project. You giving that one up will, that will reward you on both sides of that equation. Mm-hmm. So if you're in sales and you're living in a small world, you're going to get a small reward. If you're living in sales and you're living in a big world in your arena, then you are a known individual, at least beyond, your kids and the office that you work out of.
Yeah.
And when you get to that stature, that can continue to grow over a whole lifetime. And if that's your goal, you're gonna reduce skepticism. You're gonna find that you're now an influencer in your arena.
Yeah.
And if you're not going at it like that, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna struggle, right? And you're gonna have tons of churn, right? Which is
because
not fun for anybody.
When you went to Houston, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I was done.
How many phone calls did you get when you landed there?
Within a month, right?
Well, tell a little bit about that.
As far as other jobs and stuff, yeah. As soon as I was telling Doc yesterday that as soon as I landed, within a month of me being in that market,
in a new position,
new market, new company, all the competitors within that arena just boom. I was getting LinkedIn messages and phone calls and emails and, hey, I got a better offer for you. You need to be over here on this team. I don't even know them, right? Don't know anything about them. They truly don't know me. They just see a title, an age. They met me at a social function for 5 minutes. Hey, that guy's fun. We need him on our team. And,
that is so true. That happens all the time. I get calls all the time from people going, what are you doing? Are you still doing this? And are you interested in this?
And what's your answer?
My answer's maybe.
I'm about to drop the mic here.
Listen, we can talk later. Not on my working hours. But no, it happens all the time. And this morning, it happens to everybody all the time. So I'm driving in. I was telling the guys, I was driving in this morning and turn on my radio station I always listen to, and two of my doctors are going off on, they're doing just a radio show, I guess. And they're talking all about their business and putting some other guys under the bus. But I thought, man, having this information is so fantastic to go in to see them and say, so, just getting to know people. Don't burn bridges. Be mindful and respectful of people. Dr. Daniel, you were about to talk and I just kept talking.
No, I'm like, I'm still wondering about those other authors.
That happens to you all the time. It happens to everybody.
I like what you were saying earlier, though, about just kind of being, if you don't have anything to say, be quiet type thing. And I think that, to me, builds a lot of trust in a lot of conversations. And I see it happen. In construction, we do job walks for the bid process. You go see the site with the customer, and he may have, you're literally walking with your competitors. So you know who's there instantly, the three other people you're bidding with, and you're literally walking through the job.
So you're in the same group.
Oh yeah, you're in the same group of 10 people walking through, let's say a school remodel, and you're literally walking through there, and I watch it every time. Some guy, sales guy from each team will try to pull their 5 minutes.
Well, that's when you step on the guy. You step on the guy's shoestring. He's got to bend down, and then you catch up to the little progression. And you're like, "Hey, why he's back there?"
But I listen to them guys. Sometimes it works, right? Sometimes they build some really good rapport. Hey, you grew up in Kansas. I grew up in Kansas, and
I've been to Kansas.
Yeah, and you just kind of watch that thing happen, and you think, okay, but this guy's not going to shouldn't buy $1 million job because they grew up in different cities in Kansas, right? So,
but you say that. Hold on, real quick, right? Because the college thing is such a huge.
No, what I'm saying.
So many things.
What I'm saying is that you didn't lose the job if that happens. That's what I'm saying. Don't try to one up it and go over there. My grandma grew up in Kansas. Just let it happen. They're trying to build rapport too. Look, if they're at this stage
I
with
have
you.
to tell this story. Yesterday, I was at my brother's office, and he's in construction as well. And he has this big whiteboard on one of the walls in his office, and he has 10 names. And I was like, "What's that about?" And he goes, "Those are my top 10 vendors." And he said, "When I know one of the vendors are coming to my office," he said, "I write numbers by them. It's never in order."
Yeah.
And they'll come in and go, they'll see it, and every time they see it, and he said he never puts, I shouldn't tell a secret, but he said he never puts a 10 at the guy that's coming in. It's usually a 7. And the guy's like, why am I a 7? And he's like, because you're not a 1 or a 2 or a, you don't.
That's good. I mean,
and he said it's just so competitive.
it is. Yeah.
But he said it's a joke. So, to his number 1 guy, he's never going to see he's a number 1. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
I mean, it's kind of funny because I have a similar process where I do it with business cards. So I have behind me on my desk is huge pile, like it's a knocked over pile of business cards. And then I have neatly stacked business cards, and they don't mean anything, right? It's for looks. And literally when somebody comes in and hands me a new business card, I look at it and I just throw it in the pile right in front of them. I'm like, oh, thanks. And I throw it. But you can see their eyes shift back and forth like, why am I not in the nice stack pile?
He didn't politely put me on top of the stack or even leave me on the desk, right? I'd even take that. Just don't throw it anywhere.
I'm telling Tom that.
But it's just it's a funny game. It doesn't mean anything. But
So let's flip the coin a little bit, right? Because we've been kind of talking about how we want to be sold, but on the other hand, as salespeople, we need a little bit of skepticism, right? Because if the person is like, hey man, this looks really good, I can't wait to work with you, and you go back to the boss and you're like, hey, I got one, like this is gonna close.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So, but you can have too much, right? I've blown deals out of the water because I've been too skeptical.
Yeah.
And pushing too hard to get my needs met.
You believe about half of what they say usually. You hear everything they say, and you take out some. If you're quiet and you let people talk, they'll truly, eventually, because dead air in a room, somebody will fill it. It just happens,
I mean, it's the best if it's not you.
And it really is, and I really believe that. I mean, sometimes you just sit there and quiet. If there's nothing else to say, somebody will say something, right? And that's usually when you get your best information, because they don't need to say it. And they didn't want to say it, but now they feel that they have to say it, and they do it anyway. So, and
you're compensating for your insecurity in that moment.
Yeah. And another key point is,
detectives do it all the time.
And eye contact during that quiet time, right? Yeah. Just look at them and figure out who's gonna
look at them. Look at the drawings on the table. Look at the brochures, and just say, okay, and somebody will say something. I mean, it's an interrogation tool that people have been using for a long time. That you just, if you stay silent long enough staring at somebody, matching posture and body language, they're going to talk.
Yeah.
Some won't, but they're the 1 or 2 percenters, right?
As an S, I would, in the very beginning, and I've probably done it recently, but I'll get a little a little anxious, like I cannot, and I'll say something, and then I'm like, oh crap, I shouldn't have said that.
And that's where doing what Clint did is easy for John and Clint, or easier than it is for you and I.
Right.
And so we have to be self-aware of our propensity to go ahead and fill that void and not do it as much as I want to, as much as I'm just the nice guy in me just says, say something so you take that comfort level back down or the edge off of it. Don't sit there and go, what? They're not,
and eyes get so excited that they forget to slow down and
and everybody's
watch
my
what
friend
you're saying.
Like so,
I mean, I use very elementary here, but I use this. What?
Must be mean to the eye, then, man. I must suck.
No, not at all. But
he's an eye. He just cares.
We all have our stuff, that we bring to the table, right? So for me,
no. I mean, I got to be self-aware not to just say something. What I do say has got to be correct tonality and not just like, what do you mean that's what you're doing?
Here's what I want to say.
It's like, it was a real question. Let me take
this down about 70 points, and now it's fit for the masses.
Yeah. I mean, what the questions that I usually ask or the statements that I usually say, I have been working on for a long time in my head before I say them, because I know how I come across a lot of times. So, just even like that statement is, oh, really? That's what you're doing? When it was a real thing that I should have said. It was like, oh man, that's interesting. That's how you're doing that.
Yeah,
is a whole lot different, right?
Yeah,
so
tones everything.
But I work on that before that comes out of my mouth.
Well, if you're saying it for the first time in front of your prospect, like,
sure, that truck ride over there, you should be running those
absolutely
through your head.
Yeah. Because for me, when I get too trusting is when like the facts make sense. Yeah, right? because I'm like,
because you justify them to yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm like, there's no way.
Good to know.
There's no,
John.
There's no way that this guy's gonna tell me no because of like this and this and this, and then I'll get a no, and I'm like just pissed off about it, right? And so now, I am like too skeptical, right? I took this sales assessment for skills, right? Not personality stuff, just like sales skills, and I came back as like not a good fit because I'm just too skeptical with people. Like it was off the charts. It was like John is.
What was it? I mean, I'm kind of curious about the test. Do you remember the name?
I do. You want to talk about it on here?
Why not? If it was
Okay.
a good test,
Yeah,
I mean,
it was-
again, that's that whole,
It was pretty good. So it was called Outmatch. right?
Outmatch.
And
Okay.
I took it because I was thinking about, maybe it's something that we should be offering, right? Because there is the disc component to this, and this is super important, obviously, or else we wouldn't be here talking about it. But over and above that, you have skills, right? How much urgency do you have? How much, how good are you at following a process? And these other things are not, black and white on disc, because I can build rapport as a C, right? I can have conversations. I can go insert myself into conversations and things like that. So it's meant to measure those kinds of like soft skills that happen in sales roles. It was pretty awesome. But my skepticism was just off the charts because at this point I've been kicked in the teeth, and I just don't trust people.
Okay, so that brings up a point. So is skepticism from getting your teeth kicked in too many times, or is it inherent into?
It's a natural.
I was gonna say, I think it's natural.
I was going to say it's different.
Because it's natural for me too. I'm naturally hateful and skeptical right off the bat. You gotta-
Hateful.
Hateful. Wow, that's a good word. That's our word of the day.
I think-
Hateful.
I mean,
can see
I'm
that.
serious. I usually
Yeah.
go into meeting somebody. I'm like, all right, let me see this guy do this a couple of times to see the consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and the consistency is the truth. When I take notes, like Nan's notepad here, every meeting that I go into looks like that at the end. The way I pull the truth out of it, and this is the way I do it. I put a star every time somebody repeats something next to a bullet point, right? And sometimes you end up with 7 stars next to a line item. But when I review my notes, those things that have stars by them are usually the truth because it's been repeated.
It's important.
And it's important.
Yeah.
And it's it's your talking points now, right?
Mhm.
Those are the things that you come back with.
I
All
like
that stuff in between is just smoke to fill the air.
Yeah,
So-
if you can't retain, you better take notes because
Yep.
there are important things always said by your.
I like the idea of always taking notes. I don't. I mean,
Love
I,
taking
I do take a lot of notes, or I do a lot of decompressing after a sales call,
Mhm.
but I don't do it during the sales call, and I probably should.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it adds credibility
Oh, I
to the
do
fact that I just
they feel
don't.
like such man,
Important.
yeah, exactly, right? Hey, I'm gonna take some notes. Is that okay?
You're-
And then I can send you an email later with the bullet points and
summary,
everything
yep.
else. Yeah, people love that.
Well,
and
that you're
it's- I
listening
just
and
my
don't
you
do it.
care.
my problem is so important that this guy wants to take notes, and that way he remembers it. Yeah,
Mhm.
right. I mean, everybody loves that.
Can I ask you guys? I'm going to ask you guys a question. I'd love to get some feedback from everybody on this. But when you guys sit down and like at the doctor's office, you're meeting, let's say 2 doctors or a doctor. Do you guys sit across the table from everybody? Do you always put your team across the table? Have you guys ever thought about that?
I have, and we don't. Meaning, okay, where are you going with this?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's just one-on-one, right? And that's,
Yeah.
of course, you're going to be across. So sometimes it's, when it's 2-on-2, or like the other day, it was like 5-on-5 or 4-on-4, whatever it was. We spread out. So it's like their guy, my guy, their
Just
guy.
alternating.
Well, and the reason I like to get on the other side of the table is when I feel like we're all equals, right? Equal, just partnership, and also get to see their notes. Like that's really important for me because you sit
Ah,
across
yeah.
a conference table, you can't see
Yeah.
what they're writing.
Look at
And-
you,
Yeah, just a little
sneaky,
espionage,
sneaky.
I guess. But
Better
No,
be
but I
safe.
like
That's when
to
you're like
see-
scooting the chair over.
because if a buyer is taking notes on me, because that happens, it happens a lot probably. If they've called you to
Oh,
the
particularly
table.
in your industry, right?
Yeah, especially mine,
You
because
got
they
a
want
lot
to
of
know.
moving parts. and-
Absolutely.
yeah.
So they're taking notes, and if it's important enough for them to take a note on me as the provider, it's probably really important, right? So you don't always. I'm just saying you don't have to sit. It's a little trick. You don't have to sit across the table unless they tell you. And I always ask, can I sit anywhere? Oh yeah, sit anywhere. Okay, I'll sit next to you then. But I do. Sometimes I sit at the head of the table in their own conference room. I mean,
Huh.
just an interesting little
Whoa,
thing.
That's a ballsy move.
You said sit anywhere,
I
but it's trust thing. It's just some
Yeah.
little ticks.
And you can get a feel for how
Yeah.
you need to play that as you walk in the room.
I don't like to meet on their turf. Like I always try to do like a coffee shop or like some kind of neutral thing, right?
Because?
Especially when I'm networking. like I don't want to come to your office if we're just gonna like sit down and chat about like what you do and all that stuff, because I don't know why.
Yeah,
It's just the thing that bothers me.
I'm the opposite.
Really?
I love coming to your grounds. I love seeing your office. I love seeing how you operate.
Yeah, because you get
Walking through your
you
office,
gather a ton of information.
shoot
What's
ya.
on the wall? What's he focus on? If he's got a bunch of diplomas up, he's big into where he came from, particularly in my arena.
Yeah.
You walk
that's
down
fair.
and you see he vacations, and he's real proud of the places he's been.
Mhm.
All of that factors into how I'm going to deal with this individual, or
That's fair.
where he places his value. And the more information I can get, then the more bonding and rapport we can quickly move
Yeah,
through.
it's vital for me because surgeons are so, it's just like
So
focus.
what?
Well,
Yeah.
so I just love whenever you get in their office, you can see all the, their personal stuff. One of my surgeons, for instance, has a couple nativities that are off the chain, amazing. I love nativities, and beautiful.
Nativities.
And I would have
Little
never.
Like Christ and
Jesus
the
in the
nativity.
And he
Yeah,
keeps it up
okay,
all the
like,
time.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
All year round, he just
All
like has
year,
them out. Okay.
they're amazing. They're not the typical. He got them in a special
Like,
place.
are they live animals and
Hey,
stuff?
Hey, John.
But my point
most
is-
Christians believe all year, not just on
Hey,
Easter and
hey,
Christmas.
Hey.
Hey, can I get a high five on that? So anyway,
I just think
I
it's a little
love
weird to
them.
have it out all the time, but okay. Continue, Nan. I'm
could
sorry.
say something, but I won't. Okay, so anyway, I think it's really excellent to get in, and I would have never known that about him. There's so many things you get to find out about people. So I agree, but maybe that's because you are a C, so you like a little more.
Well, so
I think it matters.
I've been
Well, of course.
since I said that, I've been thinking a little bit more about it. If it's a client, I don't have a problem going to their office. But
Yeah.
if someone is just like, hey, like let's sit down and get to know each other. We met at this event. Okay, I'm not coming to your office for that.
I don't know why. I mean, I think that you just learn so much at their own place. I mean, I get what you're saying, right? You kind of get them out of there. They open up a little bit more.
Absolutely.
I get that. It's not such a business setting. If you're trying to build some good bonding rapport, I get that.
And then I can buy the coffee,
Sure.
right? Which is like a huge thing for me, because then there's like a reciprocity level there, right? Hey, I bought you the coffee. You're gonna want to help me out a little bit.
Just bring in the coffee.
Everybody's clientele is a little different. I'm usually in a very professional setting, so it's usually in a conference room.
Excuse us.
Mr.
Excuse
Big
us.
Time.
Well,
I didn't mean
anything
like
else you want to talk
VP,
about?
there you go.
I'm sorry. I meant my industry's a little more professional set. That's what I meant.
Clint, you
Oh.
have the next 15 minutes. Go ahead.
Deal. I'm only gonna need 7.
Oh man.
But yeah, for example, the other day we went over to this guy's office and they invited us over, and we were there a little early, and he said, "Yeah, just hang out in the conference room. We'll be there in a minute. We're getting some drawings together." But they had tons of information about this project that we're trying to sell all over
You're like, click.
the conference room. But and I didn't. Yeah, I mean, but you can't.
Seriously.
But I walked
And they're
over,
taping
and,
you.
and the thing is that one crucial piece of information, I kind of knew everything else that was out there. We had talked about it before, but there was a little bitty stack of business cards from everybody else that had interviewed on that, and I didn't know who they were. Usually we have a pretty good idea, and I just took my finger and kind of flicked it and knocked
I
it
was
out.
about to say, I've done the same thing.
Can I say something?
well, yeah.
Please, this is very important at this moment. There's always a camera. There's always a mic. Oh my God.
Oh, I don't care. I mean, I didn't do anything illegal or wrong. I just
I do the
you
same
let me
thing.
in the room.
If I go into a doctor's
don't
office
share.
and I
Don't
get
share
there,
this, Dr. Daniel. Oh my God.
I see other brochures from other people who are bringing
I
products.
never
in
do
there.
this.
Absolutely.
And
He doesn't
so
really
I-
either. I don't
I-
think.
I
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
go I don't go messing
snooping.
with their stuff, but
You
I
left it
look
out.
and yeah.
It's like throwing.
Moving on, please. Thank you.
I don't see why that's so sensitive. I don't know
I
why
just-
that's a sensitive
I don't
topic.
think you should do
I don't know. I wouldn't do that.
Are
I
you
look for a
serious?
window to crawl
It's this
in
side
later
of
at
it.
night and like
I mean, I'll even make a joke about, you guys are using John's plumbing on this, huh? And you kind of chuckle like, well, no, we interviewed them too. Okay, cool.
Huh.
I don't have any problem with it.
Man, my walls are always just like so up because
Oh,
because
that's crazy.
Nan was talking about like the camera and the mic, and like that's what I'm thinking about, because I remember once I was interviewing for this role. This is, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer than that. And so they're like, hey, just go in here and have a seat at the conference table. And I walk in there and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, I see the mind games here. You're trying to like game me, figuring out which seat I'm gonna sit at.
It's
Like
the
that's
story
how
of-
much.
Oh, wow.
It is a
wow,
black hole. of
that's a
skepticism.
neurosis,
You know,
man.
you know
Yeah.
why? Because you think that way.
Oh Oh, yeah.
So you think everybody else does, but
Of course.
There
buddy,
was a
buddy, let me tell
study.
you, you're a small percentage of the
heard of-
population.
Have you heard of
course.
the marshmallow study? Come on, guys.
No,
It's true.
tell us all about it.
The children. It's about children. You put them in a room. They actually did this, and there's marshmallows, and they were like, the adults were like, "Do not eat these marshmallows until I get back." Well, I mean, the minute they're in, there's cameras, and the kids are like, "No, they're eating all of them." So cute.
So, yeah, okay. It's time for the throwdown, I would say. So, Clint, as a D, talking about trust and skepticism and, vetting that stuff out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I really look for the repeat things that you talked about, and that's the way I shake the truth out. One, asking some tough questions on the spot and not being afraid to ask those. You usually get some pretty real answers because it catches them off guard a little bit. They haven't had time. They didn't prepare for you to ask that question, maybe. So being okay in your own skin to be able to ask a tough question and really don't ask it to ask it and look for the answer in all sorts, right?
Sorry to hop in there, but yeah, that's a nugget.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, the note taking thing, once you repeat it or mentally take it down, once you've repeated that 3 or 4 times, that's kind of the hot topics. It's probably the truth that they talk about. When somebody says, "We really love safety here. Safety is paramount. Safety is key. Safety, safety, safety." I'm putting stars next to the word safety a couple times. That way, when I interview again for this job or
You
whatever,
walk in with a safety vest
walk
and
in
a hard
with
hat
a hard hat
on.
on,
Like,
steel
we
toe
are.
boots, and, like, we don't.
That's every Saturday
Yeah.
night for Clint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, village people. Right?
There you go. But just the trust side of it is you kind of gotta let the smoke clear, pick out what things have been talked about a lot and what really meant, what language they reacted to, So, and the skeptical side is really, for me, is just I go in a little heavy and I'm a little skeptical of everybody right off the bat, which I think kind of helps me out a little bit getting the truth, right? I don't believe everything they say and I don't chase everything that they say. And so being a little skeptical is not bad.
I would agree with that. Okay. Al, for eyes?
I give everybody 100 points when they start out. I don't know any side of this equation. I assume you're going to be the person that you present as being, but I'm skeptical of facts and figures and the design. And it can be because you don't know any better. But if you own anything that doesn't match up, then you keep the trust. If you start trying to avoid the hard questions or the problem areas just for the gravy, then you start losing your value in my eyes real quickly. And then if you ever tell a lie, if you ever blatantly try to do something that's, off the reservation, you're dead. Never, ever again. Because there are other people. Yeah. I don't live in a one-horse town. We don't need to do business. Good luck to you. Get the F out. That's a good point.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nanette, the polar opposite of Al, I'm sure. Go ahead.
So I just think it's really important to do unto others. So I'm responsible for my actions completely. I'm going to reap that, whatever my actions are. But how other people act towards me is pretty much on them unless I've done them wrong. So I try never to do people wrong. I don't say I don't, and I have. And trust me, I'm not a saint. But I think it's really, actions are very important on my part.
Okay. I have a lot of skepticism, as we've talked about. And I think that most C's do, right? Because, facts are more consistent than people are, right? So I also kind of, when I'm selling, kind of figure that assumptions don't help me. And I love to make assumptions because, once again, I want to be the smartest guy in the room. So what I default to is digging in deeper, right? Asking the question to make them clarify the things. That way it becomes this thing that we actually have out there in the air between us, right? I really like this. Okay, why? Right? And then when they have to verbalize it, to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Does this line up with what other people have talked about? So I think by default, I push more than I think anybody else here at the table does. And I don't think it's a bad thing. You just have to be aware of it because, I can't push on Al the same way that I could like Clint. There's different levels there.
That hurts.
One's weaker and one's stronger. Guess who's stronger?
So if you're a C and you're out there selling and stuff and you don't
I quit.
and you're struggling with the trust thing, and you've been lied to a couple of times and you've got this jadedness and stuff like this, that's not helping you either.
Okay, but get over it. Everybody's been lied to.
Sure.
Don't be Al and be Clint. Obviously.
Good point.
if just everybody was like Clint,
Oh man, we'd be half would be dead,
There'd
and then the other half
the world would be on
There'd
fire.
be 40 really strong people on the planet.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Because here's how this would happen: half would kill half, then half would kill half, then half would. It would come down to 2,
Yeah,
then
maybe.
1, right?
Yep.
Good luck with that.
And there's only 2 because they haven't met yet.
Yeah,
Well, they're looking for each
They're
other.
looking for each
Clint
other.
is a Highlander.
Clint is
Awesome.
married to an S, and thank God.
Balance, baby, balance.
Awesome.
She's
so
becoming a D.
so
Vicariously.
if you know someone who is also in sales and is struggling with these kinds of things, trust and skepticism, share this with them. If you're listening, leave us a review. That's how we get better. We read every one of them. And if you haven't taken one of these assessments and you want to learn a little bit more about yourself and really kind of figure out who you are, because I was dead wrong before I took my assessment, reach out to us, assessments@salesthrowdown.com, and we'll get you hooked up. All right.
Truly makes life easier. It
It
really does.
Yeah. Improvement begins with self.
Mhm.
So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
y'all.